fighting at home, but does this feel like a big fight for you?
Yeah, it definitely feels like a big fight. I've got to wait for the coffee to kick in. They could drag me out of bed, brought me down here. I just did Brett Okamoto. It was bloody rubbish. I didn't say anything interesting. The caffeine's yet to hit my brain. I can feel it kicking in.
Should we give you a minute to just let it soak in?
I think we're soaked in now. I think we're soaked in. I think we're good to go now, boys. I'm fired up. Finally.
I like it. Well, talk to me, Dan, because I know you necessarily haven't gotten the results necessarily in every fight lately, but you keep getting these big spots because the UFC knows you're going to deliver entertaining fights. I mean, does that still mean something to you to know that, hey, they're still putting me in spots like this?
Like, it's definitely going to be an entertaining fight. Like, I think that's a fact. Yeah. I feel like this puts me. It's an opportunity to put myself back in the mix, and I think that's just. Like a little, like more so leeway than a lot of other guys, I feel like, because of the things that I've done for the company over the years. So it's like that backstory of the things that I've, the 20 fights that have got me to this point. So, you know, I don't think there's a lot of leeway yet, so I'm looking to get back in the mix.
You talk about being back in the mix. I mean, is it important for you, for people to think of you as title contender versus just like, damn, that's Dan Hooker. We know when he goes out there, it's going to be a scrap, and we want to watch him fight, and it doesn't matter where the rankings are.
That's why I'm fighting Jalin Turner. That's why I'm fighting the guy that's going to get me back into the top 10. I'm not fighting him for fun or for money. Like, there's plenty of other guys on the roster that I could be doing that for, or names across the decks that you could be doing that for. I'm fighting Jalin Turner, a very talented kid. To get myself back in that conversation, and a win over Jalin, especially an impressive performance, I think it does that.
Nice. It seems like you're impressed with Jalin. I mean, what do you think of him as an opponent? You've obviously faced top-level competition. I mean, does he stack up with the guys that you faced before?
Oh, 100%. There's a reason, like, a lot of guys were turning his name down. It seems to be the guys that always end up getting. So, yeah, it's because he's a dangerous opponent, obviously. Watched a lot of film. Like, he's got a lot of finishes on his record. I got a lot of finishes. Like, it'll be exciting.
Nice. Last thing for me, direction moving forward. It doesn't feel like you just want to be in exciting fights. You want to be in fights. It sounds like your direction is get me to the top of the ranks. Is that right? Is that where you feel you go from here, is back into the top of the rankings? Versus just let me get the most exciting fights possible?
1,000%. 1,000%. And that's like, that's a position I found myself in where it's like, do you want to be? It's like everything I ever asked for from the sport over the years, like I got, you know, like, man, I want to be a UFC fighter. Like, you get there and then you have to set like a new target. And you're like, man, I want to be in the rankings. Man, I want to be rich, you know, and you tick all of these things and you get them and you're like, oh, this sucks. Like, I want something else. I want more. So it's like, man, I want to be the champ. Like, that's the only reason I'm here.
Dan, you're obviously considered a veteran in this fight compared to Jalin, who's the younger guy. Do you think when it comes down to it, your experience might just win this fight? You know, if he gets there and you take him into deep waters, has he ever seen anything that you can offer?
I think he's like quite aggressive. And I feel like a lot of guys didn't have like the composure to deal with that aggression. I definitely have the composure to deal with it. Like, when it comes storming in, I'm not really one to panic or one to get spooked. So I think that's going to be like a big thing. So yeah, that comes from experience.
This is something of a cliche question, but do you feel like, you know, you want to beat this guy to prove that you're still one of the top names in the division? Do you need a finish to prove that? Or is it just, hey, if I can outlast this guy for 15 minutes and prove I'm the better guy all round, that does the job as well?
Oh, mate, if I could predict the outcome of fights, I'd be a billionaire by now. But I honestly can't. It's like asking how long is a piece of string, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to finish them from when the bell rings to when the bell ends. Whether I'm throwing punches, moving backwards, shooting takedowns, like, they're all there to try and switch the other guy off. That's all. Even if it's being boring, I'm being boring long enough so the other guy turns off. That's the only reason I'm being boring. So it's like, it just gets harder to finish guys. So you can't just storm over there and take guys out of the game. You gotta play the game properly.
That right. Did you do any work with Brad for this camp, considering him and Jalin do have history?
No, he's in Thailand. He's in Thailand training at Bang Tao MMA over there with Frankie and George Hickman. So No, I wasn't able to. He would have been a good body, you know. He's another lightweight, pushes me hard. But yeah, it's mainly like our coaches have had time watching him, studying him, breaking him down, watching him, studying him. Like the first, I'm sick of seeing his face. Like I've watched so much, I've seen so much tape, and I've seen it so many times. Like this fight, it has to happen.
Going off of that, does this feel like one long fight camp, considering you did have to pause it at one point because of your hand injury, and then now you're back fighting him again?
Yeah, kind of. Like, yeah, like you break your hand, but obviously, like you break your hand and you're not just sitting on the couch. Like that's not a fractured spine or anything like that, where you're bedridden or anything like that. I just had one hand. Like I've been in the gym using my other hand, still. Oh no! Don't tell the New Zealand. They're paying me to sit at home. But yeah, I like training all through it. Like you just train around it. So it definitely has felt like just like a super long camp.
Was there any reason for the colored hair?
Nah, complete impulse decision, as a lot of my other decisions.
Were the tattoos impulsive too?
They were actually. So they were. Yeah, it was like after UFC Perth, and then I was heading back to New Zealand. A cyclone hit New Zealand, so then they cancelled my flight back, and so I like redirected it to the Gold Coast, and I went with my wife and daughter to the Gold Coast, and then I have a friend in the Gold Coast, and he was just like, "Hey, if you need anything while you're in town, you know what I mean?" Like, and then I was like, "Yeah, we'll get a tattoo while I'm here." And then it ended up like 12 hours later, I got like half my back done. And I was like, oh man. Then I get back to New Zealand and I was like, oh, I want to get something, because I can't just have one tattoo. That'll look dumb, right? So I was like, I need another tattoo, balance it out, and then I'm done. I was like supposed to be a lot smaller. But then Rod, who did the tattoo back in New Zealand at Stain Skinny, like draws like all the way up and like all the way down. And I was like, oh, well, this is how we're going this way. So they were, yeah, it was very unintentional, but I'm very happy with how it all turned out.
Impulsive tattoos don't usually take up your entire back.
Yeah, you'd think that. You would think that. But now I know I can get goaded into tattoos the same way like fights. Like you'd be like, oh, but you won't tattoo your whole chest, and I'll just be like, nah, I won't. It'd be like,
how are the shins?
What a wuss. And you're like, all right then, let's go, let's do it.
How are the shins?
Yeah. Yeah, you can. I definitely know why a lot of people don't have their feet and ankles tattooed. Like I was like, at no point was that all good.
And final one for me.
I'm glad I only have 2 legs. I don't have 4 legs. So.
Final one for me. Saturday's also going to be Robbie Lawler's last fight. So I'm curious, like, what are some of your earliest memories of him, and do you have a favorite fight memory from his career?
Favorite fight memory? I was there when Robbie fought Carlos Condit. Went 5 rounds with Carlos Condit in the absolute war. Obviously the McDonald fight, but man, massive Robbie Lawler fan. Like throughout the years, this will be. Oh, if he gets. I'm going to go berserk if he knocks him out, and then I have to walk out. I'm going to be like, that might get me in trouble. I might have to not watch the Robbie Lawler fight until after my fight.
Dan, just one here for you. After the first fight with Jalin fell apart and he fought Gamrot, he was saying, he was going to be on to fight with you and didn't, want to fight you and would rather train with your team. Did you take any of that as like a slight?
Nah, like that's fair. Like that's just. That's how the number game works. It's like you beat a guy at number 7 or whatever Gamrot was at. It's like, why would you go back and fight number 12 or 13? Like, there's in no way do I take any of this stuff personally. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get offended by any of that kind of carry on. Like, he's been a super respectful guy. I've been respectful back to him. Like, I think fans are just excited for the how we play out, like technically.
Would you welcome him down to New Zealand if you wanted to do that after the fight to train?
Yeah, oh man, that's up to Eugene. Eugene's the running the ship. I'm not standing at the front door checking IDs or anything like that. I just that's Eugene. He's got to ask. He's got to get it past the boss.
Dan, over here, right here, to your left. How's it going?
How are you?
I'm doing well. Do you feel like you're being disrespected at all going into this fight in terms of like the betting odds and maybe fans not really looking at who you're fighting? Like you're fighting nothing but top contenders for the most part.
Nah, like I'm not. It like is what it is. We're in an incredibly honest sport. So after like recent results, these questions need to be asked. Like I'm not at all. I don't at all take like that stuff personally. I just know what I'm capable of. You know what I mean? So I'm excited to get out there on Saturday and just show it to everyone. Just share my capabilities with everyone. Like that's it. So it's not like if you just get stuck in like a negative thought cycle, you'll just go down and down and down. If I'm sitting at home like, everyone thinks I'm going to lose, so that means I'm going to lose. Like, well, I wouldn't be here right now.
I know it was a couple months ago. I know after Alex's fight with Islam Makhachev, you made the comments about the IV. Are you still getting backlash for that on social media?
I don't look at social media, Bubba. The spray and
Smart man.
Spray and walk away.
Yeah, for sure. And just last one for me. Jalin had a really close fight with Gamrot in his last fight. Do you think he did enough to win? Should that have gone his way, do you think?
Close. Like it comes down to judging. Obviously, with like the judging, it's like a difficult thing to really nail down. So I feel like, yeah, it's like it's how you're really looking at things. I feel like that fight could have gone either way.
Dan, just over here, going off the back of that, do you see, you know, when you watched his performance against Gamrot, was there any openings that you saw that you think you could perhaps capitalize on Saturday?
Oh, it's a little bit different. Like it's a very different skill set and an incredibly different approach between like myself and Gamrot. Just like constantly shooting him for takedowns is not something that I'm well known for. A little bit like you can take away, but not too much, I don't think.
And you've done some work with Craig Jones as well. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that's helped you?
Yeah, no, that was really cool. The first half of this camp, we had Craig Jones. Israel brought him over to New Zealand. He come down, train with the boys at City Kickboxing. He was there every day, and it's quite funny because it's not really how Eugene had it going. He didn't really... It's not like we were doing jiu-jitsu. Everyone's like, oh, so you've been doing a lot of jiu-jitsu instead of a lot of striking. I'm like, nah, that's not really how Huge had it going. Like, we were doing our exact normal schedule and then like an hour and a half, 2 hours of jiu-jitsu on top of that every day. So it's like, for that first little bit, like, we were grinding it out. So it's been an incredible camp, having Craig there for the first half of it, and then to just really focus on... my own game and working with my coaches since he's been gone. It's been a great camp.
And of course, you want to stay in the win column this Saturday. How do you see yourself getting the job done?
Again, if I knew, I would bet the house on myself through a shell company. But I don't, so I won't.
And can I get a prediction for the main event?
Volko. I think we got 40 Volk back. 40 Volk back. I think he closes the distance, buries his head in Yaia's chest, and I think he's in a bit of trouble after that.
And just last one for me, there's a BMF title fight coming up. I'm just curious your opinion on that with Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje.
Oh, that's a mad fight. Like once I found out the BMFs for you get the pay-per-view points for BMF, I was all behind it, and that fight needs it because that fight will sell like crazy. Because if you have seen the first one, you definitely want to see the second one. I got that as a toss-up. I feel like that's like a true 50-50 fight. Like they're both equally as skilled.
Thank you.
As you've been quite some time besides the Islam fight. Like, do you relish this opportunity to play spoiler and kind of prove everybody wrong?
To a point. Like, to a point. It's not like a real... I don't know if you notice, I don't really listen to other people as much as I should. So, like, I like being the underdog, having little lines and minuses and pluses next to your name, like, actually has zero impact on the like reality of the fight. Like, that's not the reality of what I focus on. What I'm focused on is the stuff that I've drilled with my coaches over the last few months. The technical analysis, like things that I focus on are things that I can control.
Yeah, and then last question
from you. Obviously, in Vegas, gambling capital of the world. Kind of curious if you have a favorite roulette number or color.
Nah, I only play pokies. That's the only real.
Thank you, team.